Ooh, what up? No, this is a Friday and it's knockouts and 3 counts. But before we get to another episode of Podcast Gold, I got to tell you about the people that are bringing you this episode, and that's Potter's Tree Service. If you're in the need for tree removal, tree trimming, chipping service, storm damage cleanup, walnut logging, or lot clearing, Potter's Tree Service are the people to do it. Check them out. Tell them knockouts and 3 counts sent you. But hey, I can tell you what they can do, or I can show you what they can do. So I'll let their work speak for itself. Check out the homies from Potter's Tree Service. The links are in the description. And then after that, it's almost time for War Games. So TK Trinidad will join us, and we will make our picks, predictions, and talk about this PFL buying Bellator and more. Stay tuned.
This is the Ring of Honor, a.k.a. Shane T, boy, the baddest champion you ever seen, boy.
This is Mr. Anderson.
This is good old JR Jim Ross, and you are listening.
You're listening to Knockouts and 3 Counts.
Cover! We got a new world champion!
That might be one of the craziest knockouts I've ever seen in my life.
Knockouts and 3 Counts is the podcast, baby! It's the real deal, baby!
Knockouts and 3 Counts starts now.
And we're back at it. This is Knockouts and 3 Counts. Like I said, there's a lot to talk about, but not just in the world of MMA and pro wrestling, because, like I said, we've got a guest with us. We got the return of our friend TK Trinidad from Women's Wrestling Talk. How you doing?
What's goody? How are you doing?
Can't complain, man. It's almost time for Survivor Series, War Games, and all those good things. I'm still full off of this turkey coma that I had yesterday. I got to choke slam my nephew a bunch of times. It was good times over here in the mitten. That kid's going to learn early. But other than that, I'm doing all right. How are y'all doing this Friday, Corey and J-Bone?
I feel a little larger. I ate a lot of fucking turkey, and I feel bigger today. So that's cool.
He said, I feel bigger today. Oh, shit.
I was missing the stuffing, man, so I had to go pick me up my own box. Like I was just saying before the show, I had to make a store trip to Myers and had to make up with the stuffing, so I picked some up on clearance, and we're going to make some stuffing tomorrow night for dinner. But other than that, man, I had a good Thanksgiving. One of those holidays where you got to get the kids to everybody's house, man. They had a great time seeing all their cousins and stuff. So good solid time, good eats, no complaints on mine.
Except for the fact that I have a fucking complaint. Jared Goff forgot how to hold on to the fucking football. Somebody gave this man a plate before we got to the football field, and it turned out bad for the Lions out here. You know, I just want to say, like, whoever gave him a plate, fuck you, because we needed to win that game. Because this man forgot how to hold on to the ball too.
Unseasoned chicken when he's bad. Okay, I'm telling you, I say it all the time. He just labeled
you jinx him before we ever get to the game. Ariane was telling you that after you fucked her name up.
You know what? Do better, Jared Goff. I'm gonna hex you. I'm gonna jinx you every week until you get it right. Look, I shouldn't bitch too much. We only lost 3 times. Okay, We got to lose a few games.
Hey, we're still winning the division, all right? That's all I got to say about that, right?
This is better than every year I've ever been alive before. So I should.
That's true. That's literally true. When they threw that stat up there,
that's so bad. We haven't been good since like 1955, so before any of us were alive. So, hot damn it. Let the Lions be the Lions. All them haters on the damn internet can fuck off. We're still going to the playoffs. That's all I know. But with that said, like I said, we got a lot to talk about in the world of pro wrestling, MMA, and boxing. But before we get there, TK, you had quite the announcement today. You got a new show coming out on Fight TV and all that. Let us know what's new in the world of TK Trinidad.
Yeah, we actually have 3 shows on Fight TV coming on. So our interview series, which dropped with Renee Paquette, that happened on the day before Thanksgiving, the 21st, whenever the 21st was. So we have that. So that's going to be an interview series that's going to be happening every week. So we have a great interview debuting next week, and then I have another show with Evan T. Mack, the Takedown. So we have an interview. That show, it's a show and an interview. It's dropping tomorrow. With Zoe Stark. And then we have another interview coming up after that as well. Sorry, another show coming out after that as well. And they don't have a start date for that. But yeah, our partnership with Fight TV is going well. They're amazing. They allow for creativity and all the great things. So I can't complain. Shout out to Fight.
That's dope, man. I know we were talking about that a little ahead of time. I've seen a couple of the clips that you've put out so far of your chat with Renee. I got to meet her when I was in Vegas for Double or Nothing, and she couldn't have been a sweeter person. We were chilling at the Blue Wire studio inside the Wynn. Shout out to the homies Andreas Hale and Kel Dansby out there.
I love Andreas. He's awesome.
Yeah, that's the homie, man. Him and Kel have been rocking with us since the very beginning of the show. Fun fact. Actually, Kel and Andrea's show is the one that got Devin to start doing a show, which is what asked me to do a show, and that's how what you see has come to be. So without Kel and Andreas, we might not be flapping our gums. So shout out to them. Hopefully I'll make my way out to Vegas soon. But with that said, tell me a little bit about the chat with Renee. Was there anything that stuck out to you? Was there anything in the interview that really surprised you or anything? What can people expect from that?
I mean, so we had a lot of Canadian talk, so I apologize if you don't want to know too much about Canadians. But we talked a lot about
It Canada, is not a good loss.
We talked about a lot about Canada, a lot about just it's in. So we talked. I'll shorten up. We talked a lot about Canada, and we talked about Saraya, the short time she had the belt, how she felt about that, and that was really interesting too because Renee, and I think a lot of us too when we interview folks, but Renee in particular because she does this for a living, but then Saraya is also her good friend. How you have to give your opinion, but also be realistic. So she really gave a good answer as to the thoughts because if your friend is a champion, you would automatically want them to have a long championship, and Soraya's was not long whatsoever. So there was that, and we also talked about the reality show of it all. I was actually surprised to hear that she said she'd be open to doing another reality show, and she kind of gave her the bullet points as to at what capacity, which is interesting too. So it was a really great interview. I felt like I could talk to her for, I don't know if it's just because that's what she does for a living or she's just a nice Canadian, which most of the Canadians I've talked to are super nice. But I felt like I could talk to her for a long time. And so she was good. It was a great interview. Can't complain at all.
Make sure you check it out. Yeah, I can't say anything different myself. I mean, she was the same way when I met her in Vegas, like I said, shooting the shit. It's funny. We talked a lot of what we talked about was J-Bone, you were with me, but a lot of what we talked about is my homie Gil Gardado, one of the coaches over there at Extreme Couture, who also trains our buddy Chris Cale from Five Finger Death Punch. He actually happens to be the one that used to train Mox when he was in Vegas. So when we were there last time, he had just got done training Mox as I came in to get some work in with Gil. So yeah, it's dope. It's dope to see, and I feel like she seems like salt of the earth type people. Like I say, she seems super chill, like really knowledgeable, but not, just a super chill person to be around. So, I mean, that's the same vibe that I got from Renee when I met her as well. Well, speaking of AEW, you got to be in attendance for AEW Full Gear. So before we get down to some of the things that I thought were some of my high points for the show, what was your overall thoughts being there in the building at the Kia Forum?
Yeah, the Kia has a different vibe than Staples. It was very much an old school vibe. Like it's an older arena. It's been around for a long time. It has a lot of history there. If you're fortunate enough to go backstage and all the elements which are actually not privy to the rest of the audience. I used to work for radio, so we used to do a lot of shows there. You see a lot of the history. The Lakers used to play there. It's just like a really historic arena. With that being said, we got some really great seats. So shout out to AEW. But the one thing that I did notice that we get spoiled at with a lot of the newer arenas is that the Jumbotron, like when you go to Staples, the Jumbotron is everywhere. With Kia, they just had one, and most of the time they weren't showing the matches on that Jumbotron. So you were forced to watch the match, which from what I've heard, every seat in the Kia, like you're going to get a good view anyway. But that was the one thing I noticed because, you just get, again, first world problems. I'm like, okay, well, I don't feel like squinting my eyes. So let me look at the Jumbotron. Oh, there's nothing on the Jumbotron. But it actually makes you enjoy it more. So on a whole, the stadium was really, really great. So that's one thing. And then another thing that I've noticed that I've said a lot, that AEW did its last pay-per-view and they did it with this pay-per-view. There's something for everybody. If you love the blood and the gore, which I don't like, there was that. And if you love something a little bit more campy, there was that. So there's a little something for everybody for different types of wrestling fans, which is a good thing as well. So kudos to, I guess, Tony TK, because, he does most of the booking, but kind of the flow of the show. It feels like it's getting, he's shortened it a little bit because some of them are like just hella long. And it seems like the flow of the show is, a little bit for everybody. So it was a good show. I can't complain at all.
I can't argue that at all because I was at Devin's wedding Saturday night. Shout out to Devin and Portia getting married and all that good stuff. But I was at Devin's wedding Saturday night, and then I went home and I heard a couple things of what was going on with the show, but all I kept hearing about was Swerve and Hangman at first. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, well, we were going to do the post show for it. And I'm like, well, I got to, I got to see this one way or the other. And I ended up buying it on Bleacher Report. Dude, J-Bone, you and I talked about this a couple days after the fact. Like, dude, that show was worth my money, even though I hate paying for pay-per-views in the first place. But, dude, that was worth my money. Swerve versus Hangman might be one of the best matches I've seen in a long fucking time. I was entertained as hell from that. And I like
this 2 in a row for Swerve, dude. He is the all-star of the last 2 pay-per-views in AEW. I'm telling you, if you don't strap the rocket to that man's back right now, bro, I don't know what you're seeing or what you're not seeing, but that dude is a superstar in the making. And I hope the road continues for him, dude, because he's on an incredible run right now, having great matches.
I couldn't agree more, dude. Like, this is definitely, to me, this was like, I mean, he's had great performances. We've been fans of Swerve for a while. Speaking of which, shout out to Swerve linking up with the homie Mega Ran. If you're going to be in Tampa for Royal Rumble, make sure you check out Mega Ran's Rumble Rap with Swerve. And I heard there's a few more names to be announced that I can't talk about yet, but you might want to make sure you check that out if you're in Tampa. So, yeah, man, I can't agree more. I ain't going to lie, man. Dude, Swerve lost a lot of fucking blood in that match. Hot damn. By the end of it, I'm just like, yo, this dude is leaking. Like, somebody's bleeding a lot when it looks thick coming out of him. Like,
and this goes back to what TK just said. That it's not for everybody. And honestly, there was points in that match too where I was like, like there was a point in the match where he hit him with Swerve hit Hangman with a chair, and the barbed wire actually caught his like hair.
Oh.
I didn't know what was going to happen there. That's just one of those things that something could just happen. It could have caught his eye. We don't know. It's wrestling. Things happen. But that was a point in the match where I'm just like, oh, God, that could have been so much worse, and I don't want to see that. But then I'm sitting there watching Hangman drink the blood from
That was something else. I was like, yo, they are really trying to, like, this man slid up under him and held his mouth open like he's trying to get water out the hose. And I'm like, yo, like, my first thought was, wow, they're pretty ballsy with even with this being on pay-per-view, but hell, yeah, that was definitely something that stuck out to me.
When I sit there, I start to question myself, like, why do I like this? Is it me or what is going on here? Because I don't think I'm supposed to like.
It's funny because I had taken a couple of people from my job, like my actual day job, to it, and one of them brought her 7-year-old daughter, and she loved it. She was literally looking and she was just like, "Oh my god, this is awesome!" As her and myself and her mom were just like, "Oh my god, I can't watch this." So again, it's just like, it doesn't matter your age, creed, whatever. Like, I don't know if it's a DNA thing. I don't know if it's something that, like PTSD from some folks can't handle it. I don't know what it is, but like, it's not a male or female thing. It's just like, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. And when I saw this 7-year-old girl, like, just all the way, 7-year-old girl, her dad and her grandmother, by the way, because she got to bring her whole family.
Awesome.
All in it. And me and her mom were like, yeah, this is not it. So again, it just,
okay, but let me ask you this. Do you think that, well, maybe not in the kid's case, because I don't know how much she follows the story of it. But, the thing that I liked a lot about this match was that, like, look, man, I like all wrestling. Sometimes hardcore stuff and the deathmatch stuff can be a little bit much. But when done right and done in a story where it makes sense, and it makes sense why I'd want to watch this dude rip this other guy apart. Like, look, Corey, I ain't got to tell you nothing. Jordan, I don't got to tell you nothing. You got kids. I only got nephews. If some dude busted up in my crib with my kids and everybody else home like that, I'd want to fucking kill you. Like, that would be, I would want your head on a platter. So for Hangman to be that crazed that he didn't even wait for his entrance, didn't wait for nothing, like, went to such lengths to win the match. I love when you see that stuff and it makes sense. Where you're watching it at home and you're like, you know what, dude? I don't blame this guy, because if I was him, I would want to kick his ass too. So, like, to me, that was something that really stuck out to me in the match, because I feel like the commentary, I don't know if you've gotten to watch it back at all, but the commentary really did a good job of painting, like, yo, this is what this guy did. Like, Hangman is basically crazed because of what Swerve has attempted to do that. And on the flip side of it, again, to J-Bone's point, I agree 100% that I feel like this is a, like, I don't want to say career making, but it's definitely a next step spot for Swerve. And, like, for him to do that and then have it play out the way it did, because that man took a beating. The moonsault that he took was gnarly. Like, I saw the pictures he posted afterwards saying it was like the craziest moonsault he'd ever taken. And man, they beat the shit out of each other, man. So, like I said, and can we get Prince Nana a raise, please? Like, that man, like, got the shit beat out of him again.
You got to do the dance on the show first.
Hey, bro, the dance is where the money's at. I ain't mad at you.
It's got to be the new entrance to every show. You got to do the dance.
Look, if anybody could make a dollar off of something like that, it's Prince Nana at this point. But TK, for you watching it live, what are your thoughts on Swerve versus Hangman, and what do you think this does for Swerve? Because we also saw, like Boza said in the comments, he comes back on Wednesday on Dynamite and wins in the first round of the Continental Classic as well. Mm-hmm. So, for him to get that big win, that's like a big stamp win, and then for him to win in the first round of the Continental Classic too, it really seems like, okay, AEW sees that they may have a new star on their hands with this one.
Well, I don't think they see that they have a new star. I think they always known that they've had a star. It's just a matter of not if, but when. And the storytelling, I definitely agree with you as far as the storytelling. Like, I can't, and you guys heard, I'm not a blood and guts type person, so I probably watched literally 20% of that match. Most of the time, I was either hiding my eyes. I conveniently found a way to go to the bathroom, which at these events, going to the women's restroom is a short period of time. So kudos to that. Because when we found the time to go and got a drink, like I was actually like up a couple times and this match was still going on. The parts that I did see were great. But again, beyond not seeing that the whole thing, because when they first started and he brought the staple gun, and then I later found out that the picture that he stapled to Swerve was his daughter's picture. It's like all
That's
the little
sweet.
nuances were really good. So if he's not a champion within the next 6 months, and I'll even extend it a little bit more within the year, and that's meaning that, and even if it happens within the year, like you can't let the story drop off or the hype drop off, because people want him to be champion. So it's just a matter of how you're going to get him from this point, from this high of this match and the storytelling, to who he's going to be, what championship he's going to get, etc. So, this is really up to Tony to fumble as far as storyline, but definitely deserving of it.
Okay, but would you be satisfied if the championship that he wins, since we just talked about that he won in the first round of the Continental Classic, would you be satisfied if the championship that he wins, if he's the inaugural Continental Classic winner? Or do you think because that along with that also comes the Ring of Honor Championship and the New Japan Strong Championship? So do you think if Swerve wins that and that's the title that he wins, do you feel like that would satisfy what you want to see or what the fans want to see with that? Or do you think it has to be like one of the major titles, like the world title or a TNT title?
I know a lot of fans are calling for the major title. One thing that I did notice, and I actually said this before this pay-per-view, I saw him at the Scrum in Seattle, and it was so interesting because he sat at the Scrum and it's just like he just carried himself like a champion. And I can't explain if it was a mindset or it was whatever, but it wasn't like, pick me. It was just the whole swag, like his whole presence, the swag, the confidence, how he interacted with Tony, how he interacted with the media. Like, it was very authentically him. And, I've been aware of Swerve for a long time before the WWE of it all, etc. But I didn't really see him in, the podcast space. But for some reason in this Scrum, it was just like, he's ready. I can't put my finger on it. I don't know what the conversations had in backstage, etc. So I feel like no matter what, with that being said, no matter what he gets, he's going to make it work. And this is not going to be his first or last, attempt, or first or last being champion for whatever, because there's a lot of titles at AEW. So it's like, yeah, you could put him on in any one of them. It just whatever makes sense at the time, but I feel like it also has to be storyline, because it's like you couldn't say, okay, well, he's deserving of this, and then you put him and MJF together, and then that happens, and then okay, what happens to the story, and then where it is, I'm saying there's a lot of moving.
It's got to be something right instead of just throwing something into it, because you could throw him into a story with an MJF for the world title, but okay, let's say he gets through it, and okay, if he doesn't beat MJF, well, then what's next? Because now you've just thrown him into that and it's a thing, versus being able to coast into it and like it kind of ebb and flow. So it makes people want to see it like that way. I agree with that 100%. I feel like that's something that we do, struggle with at times. And it's something that we've talked about before when it comes to AEW, but I definitely think for sure. I mean, like I said, at least in my mind, my opinion, like this has to be okay, we're stepping this guy up. I don't know where that road leads or what that looks like, but in my opinion, Swerve's got to be next up, at least for something on that. Go ahead. Sorry.
Any long-term listener of the show too will know Kyle's been on Swerve's team for a long time, ever since you guys got to hang out. Down in Florida, wasn't it?
He was sitting in the chair next to me, showing me pictures of his pig while Lindsay Snow tattooed the logo on my arm. That is now a shirt that she can buy on millions.com and all those good things. Shout out to the American Kaiju Lindsay Snow. I saw she was like giving some chick the Sabu treatment the other day in a match. I mean, hey, it's I ain't mad. I'm just not trying to get on her bad side. Although that Sweetwater food was on fucking point when she came to Detroit. So yeah, if you come into Detroit, we definitely got to check that out.
I just bring it up because you've been talking ever since that.
Oh,
Ever since
dude,
then
even
about
before
how
that.
solid of a how
Even
solid
before
of a
that,
dude
like
he
when
is.
we used to do
Yeah.
the Evolve days, bro, you would see Swerve all the time. Like this is like prior to NXT and all that
Mhm.
stuff as well. Like, dude, I've been saying for years since I saw him in MLW that I thought that people needed to take attention of Swerve. And I've told him as such to the man's face. Like I said, look, dude, like I'm not blowing smoke, but we've talked about it on the show. Devin and Kyle, who are two of the original four, them too. We've talked about that for years if you followed the show. And so to see him doing what he's doing now, and what I also like about it too is I feel like Swerve also represents like a different kind of star as opposed to what you see always as far as wrestling. And I don't mean because of skin color. I don't mean because anything else. Like you said, his vibe and everything has been different ever since you had the new theme song when they brought the Mogul Embassy around and he started to go more that darker heel route. Like it's been a different vibe. I've always been a fan of Swerve, but like you said, I feel like since he's kind of stopped giving a shit, for lack of a better way to put it, I feel like we've seen results. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It hurt me to watch him do my guy AR Fox like that. But at the same,
bro,
you know,
he's the anti-hero. You know he's a bad dude, but he's so damn good at it.
Again, like she said, it's the vibe that he brings. He's got that cool factor. He's got that it factor. And I feel like this match made it so that now, whether you like what he does, whether you don't like what he does, you can't watch that match and not respect both of them dudes. I think that match does a lot for Hangman as well, even though Hangman was a big star. I believe that match is going to do a lot for both of them. And I don't feel like you can watch that match, whether you're a wrestling fan, non-wrestling fan, whatever, and not be entertained or at the very least respect what them dudes did, because they beat the holy shit out of each other. Like the way that man was bleeding was something else.
That's 2 in a row. What was the one before that? Wrestle Dream, right, Kyle?
Yeah, him and
oh shit. That's 2 in a row where at the end of this paper, after we're done talking about everything, we're not talking about the world title. We're talking about Swerve at the end of these pay-per-views. So it can't be just us that knows that. Somebody's out there like, hey, check this guy out. So his trajectory's just going up, man. Stock's going up. So hopefully they build on it. I'd love to see what's next.
Hell yeah. Well, with that said, speaking of world titles, we had a world title change. We know that you like to talk about the women's side of things. What are your thoughts on Timeless Toni Storm getting her the strap? And I got to know, what do you think about the addition of Luther? Or Luther, excuse me.
Oh my gosh. Toni Storm is this is the beautiful thing about wrestling, because you're like, nowhere, because sometimes you have people like a Swerve who, like, if you take away wrestling, he's definitely somebody that at work or in whatever part of your life. But Toni Storm and her character, like, if there was a reality version of her in the outside realm of wrestling, she would be in the loony bin. Like, there's nobody.
No shit.
Like, there's nobody walking around.
I thought of Shutter Island when I first saw it, low-key.
Yeah, but it's so amazing, and this is the great thing about wrestling. It's like the suspense of belief, and even down to the letter. Because I knew in the scrum that was like one of the things where I'm just like, I wonder if Toni Storm is going to show up, because it's not her MO. Like, you have some wrestlers who are, it's a catch-22, because you want to interview them, but then some of them, like, I don't even want to go down some of the list, but some of them, like, they just don't do interviews, period. It's not even about you. It's not about whatever. They just don't do interviews, and you respect that. So that was like my thing. It's like, well, yeah, I wonder if she's going to show up, and how is she going to show up? But when she did the letter, that was just such a, just a perfect touch. And I don't know who thought of that, because it could have just been like, she just didn't show up. Toni Storm's not coming. She's not, she's on the plane, but just the letter and then how they posted it and all this other stuff. It's great. So I think she's very deserving of it. I'm interested to see how it's going to play out between her and Mariah. You're seeing like no really interaction between her and the Outcasts. And I'm not sure, I might have missed it as far as like, did they officially break up? We just kind of saw Toni becoming, kind of on the the less lucid side.
I kind of felt like All In did that though, because her spraying him in the face with the paint for her to get the dub. Like I kind of felt like that was like the final fuck you.
Well, yeah, I guess forgive me because I've been in therapy for because I'm more about conversation. So there was no conversation had between them. I kind of wanted to have that, but hey, not everybody does the same thing. So yeah, it's I love it. I think I'm really interested to see how everything's gonna play out because, like I said, wrestling is a great space, and it's kind of the there's the kind of the Luchasaurus and Tony Storm characters where you're just like, what the F? This can't happen in the real world. These people need to go. You're going to automatically call the cops or whoever to come and arrest them. Like, say you see a guy dressed as Luchasaurus shopping at Ralph's. Like, that's not a normal thing, right? And then you have the people like Swerve where it's just like, you see this dude all the time. Like, everybody knows a dude like Swerve. So it's just kind of like, it's a beautiful thing. So I'm wondering how Tony Storm is going to interact and how her storyline is going to play out, and if there's going to be longevity. That's kind of one of my things. Like I love the gimmick, but the longevity of it, and I think maybe because I lean towards the realism of things, I just kind of question. Okay, well, how long can we play this out? And it can be done. We've seen people do it in other ways. I'm just more curious. I'm the girl who reads the book, the back of the book first, so I'm just more like, how's it going to work? And you were right, Bosa. Sorry, I meant Kill Switch. I did see that. So that was itself was really, really interesting too. Like, wait, what?
Okay, I'm 100% with you on that because, like I said, I love the character. I love what we've done as far as the story. I feel bad for Luther, but I mean, hey, he's still on TV. After the whole him and Serpentico thing, like he hasn't really done a whole lot. So fuck it, he's doing something. But as far as what we're seeing from Tony, I agree. I think it's one of the best characters that they've got in AEW right now, bar none. But to your point, I feel like in order for that character to have any legs on it or anything, they're going to have to really, make it a point to make her have more of a highlighted reign in the sense that there needs to be more attention to the women's division. I feel like whether that be more matches, more defenses, more vignettes, more storylines, or however you're going to do it in order for a character like that to have any legs or longevity. I feel like is going to be what it comes down to because, when you see a lot of the women's wrestling, whether that be in WWE or AEW at this point, there's not a lot of the story a lot of the time, which to the same point that I was just making with Swerve and Hangman, the fact that there was all that buildup and you knew why Hangman wanted to beat the shit out of him. I feel like in order for a character who thrives on her own creativity like Tony Storm does and what they're doing with this whole thing, there's got to be some real thought put into what she's going to do while she's champion and in this reign in order for that character to keep legs. But I'm with you 100%. I think it's definitely one of the best things. I also got to ask you, because we got another title change with the TBS championship as well. I got to say, you talk about character, changing somebody. I mean, Julia Hart going to the House of Black might have been the best thing to ever happen to her, going from the cheerleader gimmick and being on the AEW show, and her and Shotty Lee running up to Cody talking about, oh my God, we're dating, to now you see this chick spitting mist in people's faces, fucking people up and not giving a damn. I like the transformation for Julia Hart, your new TBS champion. For those of you guys who are new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button because we did get to speak with your former TBS champion, Chris Statlander, when we were all out at StarCast, and I asked her about a lot of these things. So I was a little surprised to see her give up the belt to Julia Hart, but kudos to AEW because I definitely think it was time to pull the trigger because I've loved what we saw from Julia Hart. What did you think about that one?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, and maybe I'm in this era where I feel like people need to hold the title for a little bit longer. I feel like Chris needed to hold it for a little bit longer, because of the jade of it all. But I mean, we're already in November type thing, and not to say there's a time limit, but I think also too, And as somebody who would love to, Julia, she did come and do the scrum. I think it benefit her not to do interviews. Period. I feel like that would add to her mystique. But it's also like a catch-22 because I want to do interviews type thing. But I think it's well deserving. Like her character was really well developed. It was unexpected because if you think about it, and again, being really entrenched in the women's wrestling space, in the summer we were calling for more women's storylines, more women's matches. If you remember, a lot of the scrums, either myself or some people from the team were asking Tony Khan about, why there's only one women's match in this pay-per-view, etc. And now we had two really great women's matches and 2 title changes, which if you asked anybody in August, pretty much people were, I don't know what the right word is, but pretty much people were just, shitting on the fake TK's name as far as like, he's not about women's matches, etc. I think he was just really, for somebody who writes, who's the main booker for all the stories. I think he was just kind of waiting for the perfect opportunity and the right storyline and all the things. Like, you can't, everything that is happening with AEW, every storyline can't be perfect, and you're not. And Saraya actually said this when I got to interview her. You can't please everybody. So long story short, I think it's great. I'm interested too how this is going to play out. It could go really well, or it could not. With Tony Storm, I feel like there's going to be a point where it's going to go well, and then we're going to have to make some decisions, meaning the fake TK. With Julia, I feel like it's a toss-up as far as what's going to happen with her.
Tony Monroe. I like it. Tony Monroe has a decent championship reign. I like it. I agree with that 100%, though. I feel like, I think it was a good time for her to win the title only because she was hot. Like, in that sense, I feel like it helped. But I agree with you 100% when it comes to Statlander, especially with how outspoken she was, not only when we talked to her, but when I've seen in other interviews about her wanting, more of a chance to be able to show what the women can do and things like that. So I definitely agree. I could have done with her having a little bit longer of a reign. Okay, before we get out of AEW Full Gear, because we've got Survivor Series to talk about, which if you're going to be in Chicago, Knockouts and 3 Counts will be joining you. Make sure you come say what up, though. But with that said, what are your thoughts on what we could have saw in the last match for Sting with Sting and Adam Copeland and Darby Allin versus Nick Wayne, Christian, and now Killswitch, which I don't know why the fuck we needed to change his name, but that's a story for another time. But what could have been what's supposed to be Sting's last match in Cali? What do you think?
I thought it was great. I feel like the ambiance of it all for his last match to be in the Forum is perfect. Just the nostalgia of the Forum and the ambiance of everything. Again, like I said, the Jumbotron was there, but the way they set up everything you were really forced to look down at the screen. Down at the ring, which I think you can only film so much with your phone. So I think the experience was great. And then also, just side note, with the Ric Flair of it all, go and check out Ric Flair's interview with Shannon Sharp. Oh my gosh.
I need to watch that. That sounds hilarious.
It was, and because, no shade, because I'm a podcaster as well, because there's just so many podcasts out there, it's hard to watch every single interview, but for some reason I had some time yesterday. That interview was amazing. There's a lot of things that I learned, and the way Ric Flair carries himself feels like this man's gonna live until he's like 150. Yeah, it was definitely. And then Shannon Sharp is just, I don't know. Ever since he just made the switch to another network, I don't know if you can call it the swerve of it all. He's just been like, I don't give 2 shits. My dog's gonna eat at the table. If you as a woman don't like the dogs eating at the table, then you can go and F off. Like, Shannon Sharp is just on a whole nother level of things. So sorry for the tangent, but very entertaining.
Fuck it.
But yeah, great match.
I agree. I loved the paint and then finding out the.
Bro,
Go ahead.
I could tell this guy, he just can't not be involved. Like, bro, you can even just go out there and just stand there. But like, he had to get into a Christian cage. Like, this is something he needs, dude. This is not like I just want to do this. This is a must-have in his life, man. Like I said, like you said, he's gonna be 150 before anything even happens to him. So
he's been doing this for 50 plus years. If you think about, like, I know a lot of people, including myself, see, okay, he's a shell of himself. He's older. And you're like, just for safety reasons, hey, not a good idea to be in the ring. But if you talk to any athlete, no matter how long, I would say give it after the 4 or 5 year mark. Like, you've been committed yourself to a sport for a long period of time. Like that, those initial years after you retire, you don't really want to retire. It's just because you either got injured, your body can't handle anymore. Mentally, like there's some aspect outside of actually this thing that you love is forcing you out of it. So like for him to do it for 50 years, like what else do you want this man to do? This is literally all he knows. He didn't do wrestling and then went and did something else and then like came back to wrestling. He's been doing it for 50 years. And on top of that, for everybody and their mama, like he's talking about hanging out with LeBron and all these other things, for everybody and their mama to know him, like, why do you want to give that up? Like, clearly he likes, the accolades. Like, I would too.
Why
like,
the hell wouldn't you?
Right.
Yeah.
That guy's been a rock and roll star pretty much. Shit.
Yeah. So, like,
wrestling, man. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, and he said that he wants to die in the ring, and of course, I wish death on nobody. But again, that's the only way we're leaving here. So if that's what his wish is, then.
Has anybody tried yet?
I haven't tried the Woo Energy, but if you guys are new here, you can go check out Corey's review of the Ric Flair drip cannabis deal. You can check that over there and check Corey's review of that. But yeah, man, I think it's cool to have him out there. My only thing is if we're going to keep this going until Sting retires, which is supposed to be at Revolution next year, please don't have Ric Flair in the ring with him every week until it happens. Like if he's going to come out as like his manager for the matches and shit, I'm okay with that. But like, I don't need to see Rick. And I love Ric Flair. I am one of the biggest Ric Flair fans you'll find. As you can see, I have the big gold belt. Which way do I go? That way. Right behind me. So like, and there's a picture of me with the guy right next to it. So I'm not by any means hating on Ric Flair, but damn it, less is more.
Now, you know what I mean? Like
you don't care about your feelings.
You know what they need
I don't. If I were Ric Flair, I wouldn't give a fuck about my feelings neither.
It's like a residency out in Vegas, bro. You can come see Ric Flair 5-6 nights a week, do something.
Dude, partying with Ric Flair would be gnarly, even if he is 75. All right, like.
Bro.
He could still go. Like I said, really recommend that interview. This man is still drinking because he's like, look, like he's never, according to him, he's never taken any type of drugs. He's like, alcohol is legal. That's his theory. Like, like he could still go. He still parties to the point that him and his wife have separate houses, and she comes to visit his house. And she's like, okay, I'm not going to that house. I'm going back to my house where it's quiet. And this man's like 70, 80 years old. And like, she's like, yeah, we're together. I'm your road dog. I love you. But clearly this is an aspect of your life that I'm Gucci. I'll just come visit. Like,
how the fuck do you make that work? What other guy in America could say, I just want to party. So you and me, we're going to stay married, but you can have your own crib over here, and then I'm going to have my crib over here. I don't know any other guy in America that fucking works, but I guess when you're Ric Flair, it just goes like that, dude. You heard the man. He's having a hard time keeping his alligators down on the floor. But with that said,
right.
It's almost time for the Thanksgiving week tradition. Shout out to WWE. Looking forward to Survivor Series this weekend and War Games and everything that's coming with it. TK, how are you feeling headed into War Games? What do you think we're going to see this Saturday? And thoughts on the return of the Viper?
I mean, he's everything. So this is great. Because remember, there have been sightings of him outside of the PC. I think it was over the summer. So this is it's always great. I am interested Daniel Bryant said this a while ago, but you know, a lot of the men and women, they're like either the late 40s or in their late 30s or into their 40s. And I highly doubt they're going to be on the Ric Flair things and be 70 in the ring or 80 in the ring. So, you know, for somebody like a Randy Orton, it makes me question, like, okay, well, how much more time does he have left in his career as far as the day in, day outs? Like, what does that look like? And, you know, I'm sure he has something in his head. So does his family. So, like, what's the storyline going to play out to be? So, you know, definitely looking forward to that. I'm excited, but I think everybody has, when you think of pay-per-views, you have, when you think of certain pay-per-views, the Royal Rumbles, WrestleManias, there's always one that kind of sticks out. And I can't remember what year it was, but it was the one where I believe it was Raw. The whole Raw squad came onto SmackDown and just like beat the shit out of everybody. That was
this when Becky got her face busted?
Yeah, I think so. So that was what, 2018? It was before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. That was what made her the man.
Yeah, I really liked, because everybody in the locker room was involved. It was like West Side Story meets wrestling. So that is like something that I really, really like. So this War Game, I'm looking forward to it. But again, I feel like, for me, I can't speak to anybody else. There's always, when you think of pay-per-views, and how many of them you watch, there's always kind of one that's like near and dear that you're kind of like, man, I want to see that version again. Like, it'd be great to see like the locker, like a Civil War type thing. And obviously you can't have it every year, blah, blah, blah. But it'd be nice to like just get everybody involved. This is like a Survivor Series, brand versus brand, all the things like that. That, to me, that type of stuff is cool. Like, everybody plays a role.
I thought we could at least get a match like that. That's what I was expecting initially. Maybe have like Team SmackDown versus Team Raw.
Well, especially with the stuff with Aldis and Pierce too.
Yeah, that's why I thought we were going with that. But you know.
I think we could see that in years to come if they're going to keep this general manager thing going and keep it with that way. I think Aldis has done a good job, and I think Adam Pierce has gone above and beyond what anybody really expected with that. So I feel like that's definitely something that we could get to. Well, let's make some picks for some of these matches. I don't got the original, like the full, like what exact order they're going to be, but I'm going in order of how CBS Sports has got it on here. So we got the first one I got on here. This is right up your alley, TK. We got the women's War Games. You got Damage Control, which consists of Bayley, Asuka, Io Sky, your champion, a returning Kairi Sane against Charlotte Flair, Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch, and Shotzi. With that said, I like that match. I like that match, but I'm going to just throw this out there for starters. I think that we're planting the seeds for them to kick Bayley out of Damage Control. I think it's coming. But what do you think about this War Games match?
I definitely think so. I think provided Bayley is healthy, and there have been some stuff on the rumor mill. Nothing Bayley said, nothing WWE said that, you know, she's not fully healthy. So we don't know. She might be fine. But I definitely think that's gonna happen. That's gonna help with the storyline. I also think the fact that, you know, Damage Control on a whole, including Bayley, have been somewhat of a team either within the last year or the last couple years in some variation. Whereas, you know, Becky and Charlotte, we already know about that. Bianca's been wanting Charlotte for a long time. So, you know, and then the Shotzi of it all is kind of like, she could be a loose cannon depending on which side she picks within that group. So just on a whole, I just, you know, it's a great match, but I definitely have Damage Control for this one.
I agree, man. I think Damage Control is getting the dub in this one. I think that it's going to be a while before we see that, but Boza, you know, commenting in, you know, saying they're planting the seeds for Bayley and Dakota to be kicked out. I don't know about Bayley and Dakota. I think it's just going to be Bayley, and they put Bayley back to being a baby face again, because I mean, if you kick Dakota out too, where does Dakota go after that? I feel like it's kind of planting like leader versus leader, as it usually does when it goes with those things. But as far as that match, I am going with Damage Control in this one. I think they get the dub. J-Bone, who wins the War Games?
I'm with you guys, man. I think Damage Control gets this one. last year I feel like the women's match really stole the show too. You remember that? That was solid, dude. And I think didn't they open it? Was that?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. So the women, cool thing about it, the women I feel like have a lot to prove in War Games because when we see women's matches like that, we don't expect like all the violence, all the craziness, but every year it gets better and better for the women's in War Games. So the fact that they got room to grow there,
yeah,
I think that's huge. And you got the 8 women, 10 women, what is it, 8 that's going to do it. So why not have them in there, man? But I'm taking damage control. But we're going to get, this could be a show stealer right here. That first War Games, if it's first, we'll see. But that can steal the whole show.
Boza said he thinks they're losing. Maybe that's the thing that sparks it. We'll have to see how that plays out. Corey, I know you said you enjoyed the double cage match, dude. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that. I wish it's something that we saw more. You know, one thing that's funny to me before we talk about the men's War Games match is the fact that, can we just talk about how it's hilarious that they've made it a point to like hype up the fact, or well, what they call as a fact is that it's Cody's first War Games, when in reality they created Blood and Guts and AEW so that he could have a War Games before he left. I don't know. Maybe just little shit like that just makes me laugh, but that's been funny as hell to me how much they've it's his first War Games and he's a Rhodes. I'm like, well, kind of. But the fact that he's doing it under the War Games name, I think is going to be dope. And like we said, the return of Randy Orton. I got to say, with the return of Randy coming back, at first I was like, I'm surprised you don't bring him out when you announce that he's coming back. But now in hindsight, it may have been a better thing that Randy didn't come out, because now it kind of leaves you to be, maybe Randy's going to look a little different when he comes back. Maybe, maybe we see a little bit of, ode to the day and legacy. I'm going to tell you, I remember back in the day when the pay-per-views used to be on at Buffalo Wild Wings and shit, when legacy was still a thing. Like, I was a big fan of that before. We ain't going to see Ted DiBiase come back, because I heard even the $1 Million Man doesn't have a price big enough for old Ted. But that said, I'm just saying, if you read any of this stuff of what it's true about Ted DiBiase Jr., man, shit took a wild turn for my mans. But with that said, I feel like this match is going to be badass. I am really looking forward to Randy coming back. I think it's the perfect teammate. I kind of thought it might be LA Knight with the way they've been hyping him up and him saying he's not done. He's not done and this, that, and the other. And we've seen him, tied in. I kind of thought that might be it. But I think Randy is the perfect person for that. I feel like they're going to win, but I think they could win, and then I think Randy could turn on Cody, and that could be what we use to hold Cody over till we get to WrestleMania and Royal Rumble season and all that, because I feel like the end game for Cody still has to be him versus Roman at WrestleMania, but we got time to fill between there and Royal Rumble. I think, running something with him and Randy, I feel like would be another perfect way to kind of heat him back up and then swing him back around to Roman. So I think Cody's going to win, but I think the Viper could turn.
I guess. Yeah, I see what you did there. I know where you're going.
I try to be slick out here. But TK, what do you think about this one? Who do you got? You got Team Cody, or do you think the Judgment Day gets the dub? Because the other thing that's interesting about this too is, they've said multiple times, we've heard Drew McIntyre say, I don't like none of you. So I feel like, I don't know. I just, you always hear him say in the big multi-man tag team matches, I feel like it could implode at any minute. But what is your pick on this one?
Yeah, that's, I don't know. I don't want Judgment Day in particular to implode, because I have I love a good faction. And I love factions that are here for a long period of time, so we can actually talk about the faction and not the blip, like, oh yeah, weren't they together at one point? But it feels like there's just some some rumblings of things that's being said and shown, and who really is the leader and all the things, so, and the mommy of it all, so that in itself may cause some issues, so I don't. I'm gonna go Team Cody.
I don't know. That means like it could be some problems for Judgment Day, because then mommy won't always be on top. But with that said, J-Bone, how you like this one?
Can I fantasy book this real quick? Just for me. This is just for me. This ain't for everybody. This is just what I want to see. I know we talk about this all the time. Give me the potential. This is what I want to see happen out there. Let there be a big old battle, big old war, lots of carnage, craziness. Everybody's hurt, everybody's down, whatever. Cody's team can win this, okay? Take it home. But at the end of it all, have Randy turn on everybody. We know what happened with main event Jay and the Bloodline. We know why he was out. He's coming back for that ass, right? Beat him up. Take out Cody. Hit Seth. Hit them all. After the win, they're all, get out of there. And guess who sticks around? Damian Priest to cash in that money in the bank. Cash it in. Give him the belt. That's starting a whole fresh storyline with Seth versus Damian. And then you still got the Cody versus Randy thing, why thing going on, right? It's all there. It's all on the plate, man. We can go anywhere with this. Let's not fuck it up, right? Let them cash in at Survivor Series. I would pop for that. That's just me. That's just if I'm fantasy.
Who does he cash in on, though? So you're saying come in and cash in on Seth?
Seth.
Okay.
After it's all said and done, after the match is over, Judgment Day loses, let him stick around while Seth's laying there, beat up. Cash it in, man, to end the show. Why not? Let's do it. Perfect time. After a War Games match, what better time than that?
You heard it. Give this man the potential. Maybe that's what we'll see on this one. We'll have to see if he cashes in the Money in the Bank. So you think Team Cody wins, or do you think it's okay? Okay, you think it's Cody, but you think that Priest tries to cash in after it's over with. Okay. Dylan, we were having some Boza said something about that in the comments. But Carlito versus Santos is off. It's Dragon Lee versus Santos now. Man, Santos is running through his former LWO brethren, son of a bitch.
Get hurt?
He attacked him.
Okay.
He got attacked, and so now it's going to be Santos versus Dragon Lee, apparently. I feel like, I've seen a lot of people talking about it. I think what we're going to see next is the LWO Civil War is what I think is going to happen next. But a match that I want to know what you guys think about, because even though it's not a world title match, I think it could be one of the best matches on the card. Gunther versus Miz, bro. Like, I feel like Miz was cooking Gunther on the mic, dude, and then Gunther turned into straight bully mode, and the way he was pie facing my man and just giving him the business on Raw. I think this is going to be a great match. I think it's going to be a great match. I think that it's going to be a good match for Gunther too, because I think it forced him to obviously have to talk. And again, I think Miz is just going to show people again why people need to just stop saying that the guy sucks, because if the guy sucked, he wouldn't be a 2-time Triple Crown champ and won every fucking title imaginable in there coming off the Real World. So all the Miz haters, even though I'm not his biggest fan, shut the fuck up and give the man his flowers. But I think Gunther is keeping the dub in this one. But TK, how you feeling about Gunther and the Miz?
Yeah, the Miz is in a interesting spot. I feel like yes, put some respect on his name, but he also doesn't need the championship to be who he is.
Oh shit!
I saw that. Thanks, Dylan. Shout out to Dylan. Dylan is our unofficial producer for Women's Wrestling Talk, by the way. And Joe Tabosa is our information officer. With that all being said, I think that with the Miz, it doesn't really matter. You're gonna remember his tenure, if not more at WWE, just because of who he is, his character, the reiterations of it, the storytelling, etc. So with that being said, I don't think he's going to take the W. I think he's going to take the L, because I think we're still trying to figure out the length and how long Gunther's going to hold that championship. What's next when he drops it? I think that's the question now. Whereas I think WWE in the Vince era, it's like, no, you drop it, we'll figure it out the rest. I think now it's really long-term booking. Okay, when the new champion comes in, what happens to the old champion? They get to go back, But after that, what does that next 6 months, barring no injury, what does that look like? I think they're taking that into consideration with the storytelling of it all. So I think they're still trying to really make sense of it, or they already have something in the works, and Miz is just this is great for now, but this is where we're trying to go.
I got you, J-Bone. Gunther and the Miz. How you feeling about it? And what is the over under if the Miz loses a nipple in this one?
It's going to take about what 4.5 chops, about 4.5. I'm going to go over, but I'm gonna take Gunther in this one, man. I feel like we got a long way to go with him. Guys making that title. I mean, we need prestige for these belts, right? And he's definitely doing his job. Yeah, so I'm taking Gunther for the dub, man. Hold on to that belt.
Yeah, I think Gunther's got to keep this one, dude. Gunther needs to be pinned to lose to the Miz. He's had a great So Boza thinks that Miz should win here. He says that he thinks that Gunther needs to get pinned. You'll need botched after this match. But yeah, man, I feel like this one's definitely going to be something that sticks out. I've been a big fan of most of what we've seen from Gunther. I've been liking him since he used to be called Walter. We talked about that just the other week with our guy PCO when we talked with him about signing with TNA. Make sure you check that out if you missed it. All right, we talked a lot about Zoe Stark because of our past week's guest, Miranda Gordy. She said that's somebody that she'd like to get in the ring with, being that they had trained together so much. What are your thoughts on Zoe Stark versus Mommy? Is she staying on top on this one?
I think we all know she's staying on top, and it's really unfortunate because Zoe is deserving, but she's in a very peculiar place. And I'll give you a tidbit because, like I said, our interview with her is dropping tomorrow, and she does talk about how far women's wrestling has come. Meaning that, you have those women wrestlers, and no shade or anything. I don't think she meant it that way either, where it's like the glitz and the glam, the tits, the ass, the body, the makeup, the hair. And then you have women's wrestlers who are like, they've been tomboys all their life. Like, yeah, they look pretty, but clearly like they're more comfortable like just doing them. And that's where Zoe is. However, I feel like they're trying to find the right position for her. This is a great match for her, but I think Mommy's going to be on top still. But I think Zoe, there's still some type of iteration or character development that we're missing for her to be like, for everybody to be on board, whether they hate her or they love her. Meaning with the Rhea Ripley of it all, it's like some people like can't stand her. Some people, it's like, I really love her. Some people, it's very stark. It's kind of like almost like Roman Reigns. People hate him or love him. With Zoe, I think there's still a few people who are very lukewarm. So, and how you get out of that is just trying to figure out what to turn up or what to dial up or what character change or something. There's something that she's missing, and until we figure that out, that's that she's not going to be champion. I don't think it, but again, WWE and all these other promotions have surprised me in the past. She might be champion, but then what? What happens? Will it be a short-term thing and then Rhea comes back?
I don't see her as a long-term champ at all. Right, at least right now, I don't feel like they've put enough steam on her that it could be realistic that you would look at that and say, okay, she's going to win the title and do that. Boza says he thinks the title's just a prop for Rhea. I mean, I can't say that, man. I feel like she's had a dominant reign, and I feel like the problem is, to the same point we were just saying, like, if Rhea's going to lose, it's got to be to somebody who's been built up to beat her. The same as Roman losing the title. That's why I think Cody's the right person to do that. You can't just have her lose the belt. Not that I'm saying that Zoe wouldn't be a good champion. To your point, I think she would be a great champion. But we need to see more built on the name of Zoe Stark before she can be placed in a spot for her to be champion, in my opinion. So in this one, I think you're right. I think Mommy's staying on top on this one. J-Bone, is Mommy staying on top, or is Zoe Stark going to try to pull a Tony Stark?
Lord knows, I hope so. She's staying on top, man. She's going with us. I mean, look at her, dude. We have so much here, right? There's so much to go with Rhea in the Judgment Day. The belt, I mean, she's the first women's world champion, right? So we're taking that belt higher and higher and higher still. So like you said, I feel like we got to build something up for her to be beat. I don't think it's going to be on this night. So I'm taking Rhea for the lead.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's the way it's got to go. And TK, I know you're not the biggest MMA person.
J-Bone wants her on top.
I mean, He ain't only every guy in America. I mean, come on, right? Jesus. I'm only a man.
Look, all I'm saying is I've met Rhea, and she is definitely beautiful. So there's a reason for that one. That said, though, we've talked about before that you are a little bit of a MMA fan, maybe not as a hardcore as me and Corey are, but I mean, we haven't gotten to chat at anybody since a lot of some of the news has come out with Turkey Day and all those things. The other thing that we got to talk about before we get out of here, again, Survivor Series going down tomorrow. If you're in Chicago, keep an eye out for knockouts and 3 counts. That said, there was huge news over the week. I think anybody that follows MMA wasn't really surprised that it happened. I mean, I feel like it's been being rumored to happen for quite a while. I mean, pretty much since the Francis Ngannou deal came up, that was one of the things that was kind of floating and circulating with it. But we've had the sale of Bellator MMA to PFL, which it hurts my soul because I was supposed to be at Bellator, the last fight that they just had with Sergio Pettis and Patchy Mix, but Devin was getting married, so I had important groomsmen duties to take care of. But with that said, I'm not surprised by this move, but overall, I think that it was coming. I think it's good that they're not going to just do away with Bellator. I'm surprised to hear them straight up say, okay, what up, though, Caleb? It's crazy to hear them say, okay, we're going to keep them around for 2 more years, because like anybody that follows this show knows that we have multiple past guests and friends of the show that are, still signed with Bellator. So it's going to be interesting to see how those play out. I wonder if it's going to be a situation to where, like, okay, you got 2 fights left on your deal. You got 3 fights left on your deal. We're going to try to get you these fights in the next 2 years so that we don't have to incur your contract. But with that said, I mean, it's a wild thing to think, because I mean, bro, I've been watching Bellator since the MTV2 days. I mean, I remember when they were the ones running all the tournament stuff, and now PFL is the one that's running the tournament landscape and things like that. So it's crazy to see how the world has shifted in a lot of ways, in which when Bellator came in, they were the tournament guys, and now they're being bought by the new tournament guys. And how can they sustain it? Because again, my big issue with this is the same thing that I've said for a while. Here's the thing. Everybody knows that, everybody knows that PFL could use some more talent, but I feel like PFL is still going to run into the same problem that I've been saying for a while. And that's that in 2023, it is very, very hard for you to be able to sustain an MMA promotion that's ran around tournaments, because look what happened with Anthony Pettis, Fabricio Verdum, Bigfoot Silva, Rory McDonald. Almost every big name they brought into PFL has either lost. Shane Burgos, who was the big, oh, wow, we got him from the UFC, and he loses in his first fight because he's got to fight a killer like he does like that, and now he's out of the tournament. So, I mean, that's my thing, is like with the tournament thing, I still feel like it causes problems. But Corey, what are your thoughts on Bellator getting bought by PFL, and do you think that PFL is going to be able to learn from any of Bellator's mistakes with this tournament field?
Good summary on what I feel like has taken place in the last week, by the way. But to lead into that, sorry for being kind of quiet and having my head down. I've been following the PFL championships. So if I feel like I've been on my phone, I have been. I apologize, but I'm trying to follow the PFL championships. That being said, ESPN trying to charge $50 for that pay-per-view, you all are wild.
You're not wrong.
I just want to say that. I don't know any of the people that aren't directly in the media, and even myself being like media related, I would love to spend that $50 right now, but I got kids that, Santa ain't free, baby. So, we got to do what we got to do around
this motherfucker said Santa ain't free.
And he likes his cookies, man, and them cookies come with dollars. But that being said, yeah, as he said in the comments. But that being said, they've been having a pretty good performance on the night. Shout out Impa Kasaganai for being that $1 million winner, man. That's a huge come up from where he was last year to where he is now, being $1 million champ. Awesome. Shout out. That's the kind of stories that I feel like PFL can make with the tournament platform that they have. That being said, I've talked about it on the show here multiple times. Every time we've kind of brought up the whole Bellator PFL deal, I feel like that's the biggest issue with PFL. They didn't have enough shows to keep you preoccupied throughout the year. They would only run 5 or 6 unless you were following like their PFL Europe and events like that. That being said, now that they're going to keep the Bellator thing going, that's going to be its own entity under PFL. Now it's kind of they're doing a really good job so far on the night of highlighting all the Bellator champs, bringing them into the cage even against their now $1 million champs. They've done a really good job of highlighting what this deal means to the organization. So I like that. I like what Big John McCarthy, who was the announcer, and Josh Thompson, both of them working on the desk duties for Bellator, both of them said they're glad to see an owner who's now excited to have Bellator.
To acquire
and actually,
Bellator.
Yeah, to actually look at what the possibilities are going forward, where what they were dealing with at Paramount was not the case. Anybody who cares to kind of get a little bit of backstory on the Bellator deal and stuff like that, I highly recommend going and listening to the Weighing In podcast, where they break down the kind of back dealings and stuff that they're allowed to talk about a little more now that the deal is official. But that being said, I love it. I hate it at the same time. It's such a 50-50 thing for me at this current point. Like I say, from what I've seen tonight, I feel like best foot forward, they've done a really good job tonight. That being said, we'll see what comes on in the next, like you say, Kyle, if they're really going to run them for 2 years. And even if they continue to run them beyond that, I feel like there's potential for them to continue to grow the brand as PFL or Bellator brought to you by PFL or whatever the case, and run it under a different network and stuff like that, and be able to secure more money for the organization through TV deals and stuff like that. Yet again, like I was saying earlier, the fact that they'll be able to put on more shows. I seen Arthur Davey on or Davey, yeah, I think it's Davey, the PFL owner on Ariel Hawani's show, talking about the fact that they're going to try to have roughly 36 events next year. I feel like that's a huge step up from where they're at right now. Huge. You know, I know, like I was saying earlier, they're talking the PFL of Europe's and the PFL, you know, the out of country events and stuff like that. But with the acquisition of Bellator, if they're able to run one of their shows a month, maybe 2 Bellator shows, and then maybe mix in 1 PFL event, or just continue to run the PFL schedule that they already were, it'll do incredible things for the brand that they're trying to grow. So my biggest concern, I know I've been long-winded on this, but I've been quiet for an hour now. I can talk for a little bit. That being said, my biggest complaint with this is the fact that potentially less space for these guys to go and make contracts and stuff. Now you're going to be negotiating with PFL, even if you weren't negotiating for PFL, you're negotiating to be on Bellator. You're now dealing with PFL, where before you at least had that third leg in the argument. Well, UFC said this, Bellator said this. What are you saying, PFL? Now it's kind of you're brought down to 2 parties.
Well, and that's something I wanted to bring up to TK, being the wrestling side. You know, I mean, it's the same thing we talk about with WWE and AEW and Ring of Honor and all these things. Like, that's why I really don't understand why in the wrestling space so many people, like a company like NWA, so many people cheering for them to be gone. Like, I don't understand that mindset, because the more places for people to be able to fight or wrestle or whatever analogy you're going to use, to me is
even if you're not going to follow along, and even if you don't care to follow along, the fact that somebody's able to make a living off a sport,
you're making somebody lose food off their table,
you know, that you care about, that to me is what matters. Like I say, follow it or not, opinions on the product that they put out or whatever the case be. I hated the fact that I didn't even know. I follow every social media MMA thing that there is on Twitter, and I don't even know when half the Bellator events were. I'm glad that might now change, because I at least knew when the PFL events were. That's one thing they had going. I at least knew when their events were. So hopefully they're not going to try to keep charging $50 for pay-per-views, though, because you guys got to cut this shit out, man. I'm a fan. And I tell you what, I was.
At least it's better than the 80 that the UFC rapes us for.
Yeah, but the 80 is deserved because of the
for every pay-per-view.
No. What I'm saying is it's more. I shouldn't say deserved. I should say it's more deserved in the fact that
they have the more established name. But fuck, every one of those pay-per-views is not worth $80. I'm sorry. I love UFC and I love MMA, but fuck you. No, it's not.
No, I agree. That's why I said I should clarify with more.
She's back. But she got caught in the Matrix.
Jeez. It's always your show. I don't know what.
You got knockouts and 3 counts might have that juju. Well, now that you're back, I told Corey I wanted to see what your thoughts. Do you have any thoughts on Bellator being bought by PFL? Because the standpoint I brought to kind of tie it around for the wrestling fans is like, oh my God, all these people that are talking about, oh my God, get Bellator out of here. It's like the same as the people that I hear wanting to hear the end of NWA. Like, to me, the more high-level places that people have to be able to go and fight, the better MMA is going to do as a whole. The same as the more top places there are for pro wrestlers to be able to wrestle, whether that's here, Japan, wherever, the better wrestling is as a whole. Have you gotten to look into that at all? And do you got any thoughts on Bellator now being part of PFL?
Well, it's funny. Well, I definitely watched Bellator in the beginnings of the MTV days and stuff like that. And I knew it was still around, but it's funny because, and maybe you guys could speak to this more, it doesn't have the mainstream appeal like it used to. Because you make reference, I think, of watching like WWE at the Buffalo Wild Wings. Like back in the day, you would catch the Bellators and all this stuff at the Buffalo Wild Wings, like when you're going out to eat. And it's not like readily accessible like it was. And then I feel like this is the mainstream of it all. And maybe because we have so much social media, it's like there's just too much to follow. Although Bosa, I don't know how you have time to know everything. Like I just, you need to write a book. But it's just kind of like, I think it's going to be good. I kind of think of the NWA and the impacts of it all. Like when Impact lost their deal with Pop, people were like, oh, that's it for Impact. We don't need Impact. But it's just like Impact is still doing an amazing job, and they found their lane and they created their stars within their lane. So maybe with this deal with Bellator, I don't know if you kind of touched on the money aspect of it. If there's like an injection of money and, a revamp and, really a positioning of the stars, because you can no longer, and I say stars, because you no longer can just be an athlete. Like you can no longer just be good at sports, because that's cute. But like, in order for the company to make money and you to make money, there's either a really great marketing team or you become a really great marketer of your skill set. So I'm really interested to see how this deal is going to pan out. And if it's going to break through into the mainstream media where, somebody like me who knows of it, but I can't tell you who's doing what. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of almost the same thing with like UFC, and you talk about women's MMA. A lot of people still, when they think women's MMA, people still think Ronda. And Ronda hasn't been part of the game for a minute. So like, how do you revamp on the women's side of things too? So, a lot of things at play. We'll see what happens. But I think marketing for people who are in college still, marketing, barring the world doesn't end and zombies don't take over and everything like that, marketing is the marketing and IT are probably the two things to do, because marketing across the board and HR too. But something fun, marketing across the board, you need it for everything. You need it for everything.
I agree 100% with that. That's something we've complained about Bellator long before this PFL thing ever happened. Like the fact that you don't know about these fights, and they would be fights that would just be stacked cards, like just stacked cards, but nobody knows because they're not doing anything to really promote it. And here's the craziest part of the whole thing is that if you really look at it, if you look champion for champion, PFL versus Bellator, Bellator blows out pretty much every champion in PFL that's not named Kayla Harrison. Like I mean, am I wrong? You laugh, but am I wrong? Like literally, I would be willing to bet a whole parlay on all the Bellator champions, like dead ass. Let me do if you're going to do Bellator versus PFL, I will bet on every Bellator champion against PFL except Kayla Harrison.
It looks like that's a real thing. Like I said, I've been kind of following along all night, and they keep, every time somebody gets announced, they keep bringing the Bellator champ of that same division in to do a face-off, belt to belt. So it looks like that's a real thing coming early.
Bellator will smoke them. You heard it here first. Bellator will smoke them.
Yeah, there's not a lot of favorable matchups for the PFL, and
except for Kayla Harrison, that is the only matchup they got.
And she's not even a champ no more. You got Larissa Pacheco, who beat her last year, and Kayla Harrison didn't fight for the season this year. This is her first fight actually on this card of this year. So
that's a bad thing for her too, low key, if you think about it, because they were talking about her signing somewhere else and all that stuff. Well, you just took out the only other spot she can fight other than Japan.
Yeah, that's who she was supposed to sign for to make the fight now that is easily accessible.
If Cyborg versus Harrison does not happen, PFL is a bunch of dumbasses.
Wait, Cyborg is with PFL or Bellator?
Bellator, but Bellator just got bought, so now she's with PFL.
See, I didn't even know she was still around. I know
she's still the champ.
Wow, that's crazy. See, the fact that you don't I don't know that, and Cyborg is a well-known name to me.
Because Bellator.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. I love Bellator, and I've got homies that are still signed by them. But that right there, what he just said, because Bellator, that's the truth.
Spins back to what I was saying while you were having a bit of internet trouble. That spins back to what I was saying was the fact that with Arthur Davey taking control and the PFL branding taking control, at least you have somebody besides they were ran by Paramount. I like I said, for anybody who's really curious, go listen to that weighing in show with John McCarthy. That'll really break down the whole insides and outs of why Bellator wasn't quite as successful as it should have been in the last couple of years, and also what they're looking forward in the deal going forward. It was really informative. But that being said, they were ran, produced, and paid for by Paramount, who, as they were saying on the show, was used to getting paid to put on stuff on a network. NHL paid, they were only stuff they were paying for was the top tier stuff, the MLBs, the NFLs and stuff like that. Other than that, everybody was paying for a time slot on their stuff. They were paying money to put on Bellator. They were paying athletes. And then on top of that, they lost their creative director, who was their main guy at Paramount. So then they ended up in a situation where nobody at the network knew what to do with this organization that they owned. So it was like, that's
sounds like WCW.
Another thing that in the Ariel Helwani with Arthur Davey, it was also brought up the fact that Bellator didn't actually sell for cash. It sold for stock in PFL, which is another
fucking wild
thing to me. The original numbers being brought up were 500 million. Then it was potentially around 200 million. And then it went for less than 10%. He didn't clarify the exact number.
That's fucking crazy.
A small portion of the stock in PFL, which is a company that, Kyle, you can attest to this. We've been following MMA our whole lives. Not all these organizations last all that long. And with PFL doing all these moves and stuff to make
with that Ngannou contract alone, TK, I don't know if you saw the specs to that contract alone, but Ngannou needs to have a standing ovation every time that motherfucker walks into a room at this point. Because the fact that he was able to do what he did against Tyson Fury, and now he got paid the biggest bag he's ever got or ever going to get for just fighting Tyson Fury. And on top of that, he's already signed into a contract where he's making a minimum of $3 million. Whoever fights him is going to make a minimum of $2 million, which means they're out at least $5 million every time he gets in the cage between him and his opponent. You talk about fumbling the bag. That man did not fumble the fucking bag.
I mean, but if you look at the revenue splits that the UFC is so used to dealing with, if we kind of do what the PFL is saying that they're doing, where it's going to be closer to a 50-50 split, I feel like that's the realistic numbers that we can see if the PFL is able to generate pay-per-view pay-per-view buys. I feel like that's the biggest issue right now. Like I said earlier, with the whole $50 thing, y'all got to quit that, because I feel like you guys could have did some decent numbers tonight. There's no other competition in MMA right now, or tonight being, and you guys could have really did something, but with that high of a price tag, it really hurts your viewership.
Yeah.
That being said, to kind of summarize my point, I like the fact that now Bellator is at least owned by somebody that's excited to own the company.
I agree.
And is willing to invest money to see a better and brighter version of Bellator, and to kind of see it to what it can become. And I'll leave it.
I mean,
at
dude,
that,
they
I
could
guess.
keep it around as a feeder too. So it's definitely going to be something that's interesting to watch. But Dylan had the best question, and this will be the one that we get you out of here on. We can do this in quick form. CM Punk, Pepsi Phil, does he show up in Chicago? Yes or no, TK?
Sure. Why not? I'll make a short version. If you watched our news show on Wednesday, Kay McCoy, who just came back, he made a really great point as to a good reason why CM Punk would show up. And, the narrative that has been spinning, myself included, as far as CM Punk and his relationship with the locker room, etc., doesn't necessarily extend to the WWE of it all. So if that's the case, and there's no, his issue is more with, the Tony Pongs and everything that happened with AEW and the people at AEW, and there's no beef with WWE, and it makes sense money-wise, all this other stuff, then why not? WWE is known for, especially, we already see the pettiness back and forth between AEW and WWE, so they're going to want to have a pop this weekend. So, something is going to happen. It might not be CM Punk, but there's going to be something that's going to happen. They're just not going to have what we just read off on the card. There's going to be something. So with that being said, at first I was saying no up until last week, but after talking to Kane and hearing his reasonings, I think it's possible. So sorry it wasn't short, but
You're good. You're straight. No, you're fine. I'm still very intrigued by it. I'm not so sure that we see it now, because I don't know that WWE feels like they need CM Punk. But with that said, I mean, like you said, there's definitely been some jabs and fuck yous back and forth. So, I mean, if you were really going to do that, especially, and let's think about this. They're doing this while AEW was in Chicago too. So they're in the same fucking city. How big of a fuck you would that be to be in the same city and then have him show up there and have people lose their fucking shit and instantly suck all of your spotlight out, which again, to your point with the pettiness thing, might bite AEW in the ass, because I'm telling you right now, we talk about the controller switch when Mick Foley won the title in 98. Look, dude, if they come out and CM Punk ends up coming out in Chicago, AEW Collision and Rampage might as well just shut the fucking camera off, because I'm telling you, you're going to see a giant switch if that happens. I agree with you. I don't know that I think that we're going to get to see him, but dude, I also think now, and I've said this on the show for those of you who are new to us, I feel like with CM Punk going to AEW and seeing how that played out and all that, I think that now he probably sees what I think a lot of people are seeing, in that maybe the grass isn't always greener when you get out of WWE, unless you're somebody like Adam Copeland, who just is looking to have his last run and be able to do some more stuff. I think the people that are leaving from WWE to AEW and those that are coming from AEW to WWE are seeing the difference in the production level and the hype level. And like you said, no offense to AEW, but they've only been around, 4 years now? That's what it's been. It's been 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Look, there's no way else to put it. WWE is as hot now as they've been in a long time. And you can say how much buzz AEW has around it till you're blue in the face. It ain't fucking with WWE buzz-wise right now.
I mean, we just have to look at that Tuesday, the Tuesday Night Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Oh, you're going to move it to Tuesday? Here you guys go. Have Cena, have this, have that. It's just kind of like, and now they have that TKO money, bro. Like it's and I've said this before. AEW needs to take a page from Impact and literally just stay in their lane, and not say that they can't get to that level, but just like
build
regular-
yourself up there first. Do your own thing and don't be so worried about them that you fuck up your own product.
Yeah. And I think that's, and it's hard. Everybody has an ego. Like no matter the humblest person still has an ego. So, and Tony Khan being a billionaire, I mean, I was reading like you should read his Wikipedia. Quite interesting. But being a billionaire, all the things like, you're used to getting your way. And, he's not to take the way that he's not a hard worker and all the other stuff, but it's just kind of like, it's like, okay, well, here we are. We're doing this. A lot of people have tried to start wrestling companies, all the stuff, but here it's creating it. So, does AEW have a sometimes?
Yeah, it depends on what we're talking about. With what we were talking about earlier in the show before you jumped in, Dylan, I think there's definite buzz around the Swerve and Hangman thing. But to your point, like there's not enough heat on them consistently too for them to really compete. Go ahead.
From somebody with the outsider's perspective, right? As you guys can tell, I've kept quiet on most of the wrestling stuff because I don't follow it as deeply as you guys, so I don't feel like my opinion's valid in a sense. But on this type of stuff, it is because I do follow from an outsider's perspective, and it seems like in the AEW case, whenever they put on a good solid match or pay-per-view or something like that, they're in that spot where people pay attention to them. At least, and that's something hard to get because, like we were talking earlier, with the Impacts and the other organizations that are trying their best to even get that type of foothold, I feel like AEW definitely has that going on. Mm-hmm. They definitely have people paying attention, and if they have matches that are noteworthy, people will talk about them. But they're not to the level where people are just going to hashtag WWE this, that.
They're not selling out on the name AEW.
Yeah. And they're still, like the other day, I pulled up behind somebody's car and they had an AEW big graphic on their window. And I'm like, they have diehard fans out there that want that brand to grow and they give it the attention. It's just, it's hard to compete when you have such an established brand in WWE. And when you're comparing them to an organization at that level, it's going to be really hard to compete with. But when you compare them to themselves and where you may have expected them to have been, like you said, 5 years into running an organization, I feel like they're doing really well. So, yeah, maybe do they get all the traction that they deserve or whatever the case? Maybe not. Maybe do they deserve all the traction that they get sometimes? Maybe not. But at the same point, I feel like they're trying, and it's always a good thing to have an organization that's trying in a sport that you care about.
Like we talked about with MMA and the story of pro wrestling, the more places people can go, the better. J-Bone, we'll end with you. Pepsi Phil, is he showing up or is he not? Is Pepsi Phil showing up? And is it going to be as bad as when he fought in the UFC?
Can't get that bad. Never get that bad. But, man, like we said, man, like I know
he got paid $1 million, hot damn it. The numbers came out for that. So, you know what, hot damn it. If I got paid $1 million for one fight, I'll do it.
It sounds like he can be a headache to a lot of people, man, but he's better when he's on TV. I think that's the bottom line. WWE knows the money that he can bring in. They know the shock value, and they want that. Like TK said, they want to pop in Chicago, and this is probably going to be the best way to. I hope it's Nakamura's opponent or whoever he's calling out in these promos, these vignettes. I hope it's that because one, I love to see Punk back on TV, even though he's a headache. Two, I want to see Punk wrestle Nakamura just as a fan. That would be great. That would be great. So, yeah, I feel like all signs point to yes. Bring him back. If it's not for long, maybe just till WrestleMania or something. But we'll see how it goes, man. So I'm with
it. I don't know, man. Maybe we're going to have to see how it goes. You've been sounding like you're like a little ways from it. But with that said,
still trying to get my voice back, dude.
Still,
look, maybe you shouldn't have been screaming so loud at Metallica, kid.
Uh-oh.
Fuck around and find out. Well, TK, we appreciate the time. Let everybody know where they can find Women's Wrestling Talk. Let them know anything that you've got coming on the horizon.
Yeah, you can follow Women's Wrestling Talk on all things at www.talkpod.com, www.talkpod. Like I said, dropping on Fight TV tomorrow. You can check out our interview with Zoe Stark, me and Evan T. Mack for the takedown. You can check out that show. Then we have an interview dropping again on Fight TV on Tuesday with, I'll just put it out there, with Hyon. Really great interview.
Fuck yeah.
Man, she is amazing. I really love interviewing people. And then after having another interview, and like an off-camera interview, and we talked for like another 45 minutes. Super dope. So yeah, that interview is dropping as well. And then yeah, tune into our news show. We have a WoW show, post show. We have an Impact show, all the things. And you can follow me at everywhere on everything at TK Trinidad.
You heard it here. Dylan's already coming in. Man, I already knew I liked you when I went on Women's Wrestling Talk, but he says he might have to throw a little video together to see whose predictions are most correct for Survivor Series. We'll have to see if J-Bone really deserves the potential, but all the more reason why you got to be hitting the subscribe button. Like I said, if you're checking out Survivor Series or coming to Chicago, keep an eye out for Knockouts and 3 Counts. We will see you next week. There's all kinds of good stuff to come. And if you're still in a food coma, I ain't mad at you. Peace.